I've had to sort of prune this down a bit because Derek's mentioned more than a few things and would not tell me what he was going to say. But obviously he's been through actually quite a lot. It's true, I came here from school a few weeks before the Cuban Missile Crisis. One or two of you have heard me remark in the past, as far as I know, the two events are not connected. It's actually quite hard when you look back. I mean, it's said that when a person is drowning, their whole life passes before their eyes. I can tell you now, it happens in your retirement do as well, with little doubt. I wanted to say a bit about the influences on my career insofar as I ever thought that I had a career, because I didn't have a career. I didn't do a Michael Heseltine thing of writing out a list and saying whatever it was on the envelope, Prime Minister so-and-so. I really didn't actually do anything like that, and I'm just not the kind of person. But I think it's pretty obvious that the people that knew me longest ago would probably have had the greatest influence because it was early on. It's a bit like trying to divert an asteroid. If you start early, you don't need to give it that much of a push. And it was the same, I think, with me and my career. The first great influences on a shy 16-year-old, which I was, were Harry Watson and Franz Hayman. I learned a lot from Harry. Some of it I prefer still not to talk about. And also from Franz, who took a considerable personal interest in me, although had an interesting turn of phrase, because I burnt myself on a soldering iron while soldering. Remember, in those days, in the 60s, soldering irons were the size of my brother's. You know, they were pretty big, and I burnt myself. And he said, "Oh, that's what we call charring off the unskilled flesh." The next person that took a big role in my training was Doug Webb, and what was in the cloud chamber group, because the further back you go, the more nuclear physics, particle physics, that's a name, didn't even exist back then. There were lots of different groups, and we had about 4. I was in the cloud chamber group, and then I joined the smart chamber group. Is Martin Palmer here? Or not? Yes. There he is over there. Martin was the first person that I met who is actually still here. However, it wasn't very long before I was off to do the HND, as Derek said, and then there were periods back here, and then I went away and did the Part 2 graduateship at the Institute of Physics, and actually came back. And it was during one of those interstitials, if you like, that I met Henry, who's down there, who was an influence and a help, because he's got the sort of natural intuitive grasp to some problems in physics and engineering, which I think had a considerable influence on me at the time. And I've always been very grateful for that particular input at that time, probably firstly in the pattern recognition group, but also sort of dropping by later to see how well I was doing on the RUE stuff. The other thing I'd like to thank him for is introducing me to the Lord of the Rings before it became fashionable. And the only way I've been able to pay that back is by introducing him to the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. So Jacqueline's still here. Yeah. Henry and Jacqueline ought to talk to each other because she is an aficionado of H.P. Lovecraft as well. How embarrassing that is. Anyway, never mind. Once I got my graduate, as I said, I came back and worked on the International Ultraviolet Explorer, and we've got Mike. Is Dave here? Dave, did he make it? No, I don't think he did. I was hoping he would be able to come. And Ken, who is here, and Duncan sadly wasn't able to make it, but Mike Courtauld is here still at my trust. Yes, yes, good. We spent a long time developing the instrument for the spacecraft, and I think more than once we thought it was not going to be launched because we kept failing to meet the technical milestones, and the launch windows were sort of slipping by, and I think there was a definite risk it wasn't going to go. In the end, it did go, and it's an incredibly successful spacecraft. That's a period in which I really enjoyed working with Alec Boxenberg, right over the back, because I worked with him on that and a few things later on as well. And I think I have to thank Alec for my confirmation, if you like, of the assistant experimental officer to experimental officer. That was the first, if you like, procedural recognition that I might actually have achieved something. I'm not sure that I always thought I did, but that's beside the point. And after that, I moved into the Balloon Group as Derek said, developing the flight camera. And that's the first time I worked with Andy Schrammanders. Then I come back to this group, and that's the bulk of the time actually. I mean, we're now looking at working with people like Chris and Derek and Dominic and Dave and they're leading up on a whole lot of stuff. Seeing quite a few group leaders in the HEP group. Fred, take it, Peter Clark, John Butterworth and Mark, and they've all been good to work with. As you know, I'm currently working on Super Nemo with Ruben as principal investigator. Is Ruben still here? Yeah. Ruben is still here. Okay. As a project leader, he's as good a one as you would hope to find in terms of motivating his team. It's been a pleasure working with him, and I've put that in just to embarrass him. But it's true. There is one person I've actually left out, and most of you will realise who that is. No, you're right at the end. One person that I've actually left out who developed the career, who gave me the opportunity, and that's Doug Davis. It's he who recruited me, never gave up hope when I seemed especially useless, ensured I was properly trained and educated, and was the author of UCL's Technician Training Scheme. I can say with complete confidence that I would have amounted to much less if it were not for him. Probably wouldn't be here talking to you now. And I wasn't the only one. If the juniors at that time were not totally gormless, there were many occasions where they were a bit short of the right amount of gorm. Really. Doug made considerable efforts in guiding, nurturing and advising junior technicians over a whole generation. One regret I have, Mark's mentioned this, is that we don't have a technician training scheme currently. Other colleges and universities have continued or restarted theirs. UCL hasn't, and it should. It's probably the most serious thing we're going to say. There have been 5 heads of department since I started. Harry Massey was the only one I never spoke to, because I was a shy 16-year-old to start with, and then I was somewhere else doing this training. The others got to know me quite well. Phrases containing the words thorn and side probably spring to mind very often. See also under trade union, which leads me to tell you I was quite well known in human resources, probably for the same reasons. I've had a lot of help from the departmental admin over the years. There's a whole lot of people here. There's such a long list I can't actually mention them, but I do owe them quite a lot of actually sorting out problems. And the workshop, I'd like to thank them too, because the work of my work and the work of the group would not have been possible without their help, support and advice. And I've worked outside the group, notably in radiation protection as well. That's been handed over to Derek Thomas. Is he still here? Derek? If he's not?
He's setting a lab up for 2 o'clock.
Is he?
Derek, are you still here?
He's going to be taking over from me as Departmental Radiation Protection Supervisor. and I have just one piece of advice for him. If it glows in the dark, keep away from it. Outside the department, I was obviously very involved in the trade union. I was a member of UCL's safety committee, and it's reconstituted in successor. And I've worked very well with people like Helen Donahue and Bill Lean on that over the years. And also, interestingly, people that I've worked with inside the department and outside, the two of them are Tria Saint and Kevin Saint. Interestingly, the same name. I don't particularly want to put any other interpretation on the Saint bit, because you have to make your own minds up about that if you knew them. But I did a lot of regrading work for people both on the old and on Hero. Spent a lot of time on work experience students. I was trying to work it out. It's well over 100. I came up at something like 130, 140 work experience students since we started around 1990. And who have I worked with the longest? Well, there's no contest here. It's Derek. We've been through quite a lot together. I've depended on his intuition and skill quite a few times. Perhaps the most single impressive example is when we had to change all the gas and cable connections to the open fault detector at very short notice. It was Derek who solved that problem when I thought it probably couldn't be. He's also the other person, along with Christine, who's organised this event. I'd like to refer to a few incidents that stand out in my memory. These are just going to be one-line things in a list. The people that hear them will know what I'm talking about. Derek's already mentioned one. The orange in the boiler suit. Why you shouldn't get in a lift with Chris Selby. And his brother and the television. Dave's plastic golem.
Oh, yeah.
Showing that trichloroethylene is a dielectric, using a very high voltage PSU and a very thin wire. Do you remember that? It's a long time ago. Dominic's flaming alcohol trial, the great Twix bar incident, the great lunchtime glue flood, taking an eclectic drill over the Franco-Swiss border, not noticing at 11 PM at CERN that a 10 meg resistor was shunting the voltmeter, going right around the let ring during a shutdown. And this is really personal for me, submitting a job to the workshop which could not possibly be made. So that's it. Obviously my life now takes a slightly different path. A very short poem that expresses how I feel. Some of you will know the source. Henry certainly will, and Christine might as well. And it is, the road goes ever on and on, down from the door it began. Now, far ahead the road is gone, and I must follow if I can. One way or another, I think you're going to miss the jokes. Thank you.
There is food in E1, if someone could open those doors.